Welcome back, Rock Lads. Y'all ready to get traumatized? I'm assuming you've all read these chapters, so we're just gonna jump in. A bit of a disclaimer though, if you're sensitive to topics such as how you say self-deletion, you may want to sit this one out. Believe me, I understand. Gun buddy. Now, without any further ado, let's rock. Yeah! We pick up just after Phos finally succeeded in giving Cinnabar a new job, protecting Sensei from Phos. Yeah, the whole thing is messed up, but this is the least of our worries this time. Paparaja got murked, and Yellow is catatonic. Phos took Yellow along on the night raid when his weakness just so happens to be hurt friends. Having Yellow harm them directly is the worst case scenario, especially considering that he's always had a guilt complex similar to the one Phos has. Cairngorm lays down the law and informs Phos of his rampant lack of consideration for others, adding that the gems only follow him because he gets things done. As we talked about last time, whether he's consumed by apathy or ambition, his friends will inevitably suffer because of him. He finally resolves to stop disregarding others for his own purposes and slithers off to apologize. He decides that on this next mission, he'll go in unarmed and alone, so no one else has to get hit by our old friend the trauma truck. Now, he could have done this before, but he was too preoccupied with making Sensei suffer to think of a peaceful solution. There's a dark undercurrent to Phos's decision, however. He decides that this is his final effort. He can't bear the burden of living like this any longer, and asks to be abandoned should he fail. And it's here that we start to see the theme of these chapters take shape: rejection of oneself. The wedding ceremony for Gormy and Ikmia starts off as one of the most jovial events in the entire series, but it doesn't seem so happy when we learn that everyone is just so jazzed about being obliterated. The Lunarians aren't the only ones interested in self-annihilation, however. Yellow now curses his existence as a gem and wants to be a Lunarian, which wouldn't help him much since being one is by no means a ticket to an anxiety-free life. After all, momentary pleasures are the only comfort the Lunarians have in a life of perpetual unease. But at least in that case, there's a chance Yellow could escape the pain of living by becoming nothingness. Centuries of unchecked rumination and self-blame have ultimately led Yellow to seek his own destruction. Meanwhile, Cairngorm makes innocent remarks about wanting to become nothingness with Ikmia, while appearing to not fully understand what that means. She should know though, since she too once contemplated becoming nothingness. But Cairngorm sees all that as behind her now. It was all Ghost's influence, right? Basically, Gormy hates anything to do with her old life, which was consumed by the same kind of survivor's guilt that Phos and Yellow constantly experience. So instead of facing it, she destroys any reminders of it, not realizing she's ultimately running from herself in the process. In essence, rejecting herself. As for our favorite Neapolitan Pebble, 220 years have passed since he attempted to reason with Sensei, and he's been laying there immobilized the whole time. Let's not forget that Phos has an advanced sense of time, so he's felt every second. This is the same condition that put Yellow in the state he's in now, and like Yellow, Phos has finally had enough. Instead of pleading with Sensei for the Lunarians, he pleads for his own nothingness. Phos's fragile humanity is on full display, and his inner torment has manifested in a physical form. It's amazing how Phos seems to juggle a positive and negative character arc at the same time, simultaneously improving as a person, but worsening in his mental state. Can't wait till Phos finds out that Sensei's defect would destroy everyone. That'll be fun. Speaking of Sensei's defect, now, I'm no scholar when it comes to Buddhist teachings, but one key idea is the middle path. This describes a way of living that is free from chasing momentary pleasures like the Lunarians, as well as a sad existence longing for total annihilation, also like the Lunarians, and Yellow, and Phos. This is achieved by removing your sense of self, and any thinking that leads to such thoughts as, I want this, and I want that. Thoughts like these are considered to be the source of all suffering. Sensei's problem is that his love of the gems caused him to shape them in the image of the humans that created him. In essence, he has formed an identity for them, and in turn, found an identity for himself as their caretaker. He loves the gems in this sort of pure and unconditional way, but in Buddhism, all desires desires are considered problematic. Even desiring to be free from your desires is a desire. Desire, desire, desire. As such, he is no longer fit to be the priest capable of setting everyone free from the world, since he's found an attachment to it. Sensei's love of the gems gets kinda creepy though, when we consider that Ichikawa wrote another story before this that featured this guy. However, I don't think Ichikawa was trying to bring in the same idea here. If anyone's the groomy creep, it's Ikumiya. Sensei is more like an overprotective parent, and every parent naturally wants their kid to turn out a certain way. But in Buddhist thought, attaching someone to a false ideal is just as foolish as clinging to a false idea of your own identity. Sensei has formed an ego thanks to his attachment to the gems, and the way he tries to mold them in the image of the humans he misses so much. The great irony is that as Foss pushes out from under Sensei's thumb, he actually becomes more human. One of the many dangers of forcing someone to be as you imagine them is that it dehumanizes them. Foss is now free from Sensei's perceptions of him, and as such, is becoming his own person. Let's see what else we can dig up about Sensei. In Buddhism, to live is to suffer, and extinguishing the self is the only way to be at peace. The Lunarians know this, and embrace it. So how is it that Sensei has lived for just as long as them, and yet still finds himself content living on a single landmass with a bunch of rock folks? We have evidence of him being just as tired as anyone else, but I think it's this attachment to the gems that keeps him going. For some of us, being steadied by something we cherish may be all that stands between us and oblivion. Sensei has found something that gives his life meaning. If he were to extinguish the Lunarians, he'd be removing their chances of finding something that means more to them than the daily ups and downs. He would be rejecting the life of another, and if one life is better off being extinguished, that would naturally lead to the conclusion that every life is better off being extinguished, hence the halo ring effect. Sensei is trapped in a position where he must ultimately decide what everyone's life is worth. In many ways, Sensei is like a god in this world, especially when you consider that everything in the story, including everyone's goals, all come back around to him. But really he isn't. To desire is to be human, and in that regard, Sensei is no different than any of us. To complicate Sensei's predicament, he can't bring himself to resist Foss, because Foss is his own child and the object of his affection. Now, the fragile thing he shaped with his own hands is begging to be deleted and expressing hatred towards him. That's about the worst thing Sensei could ever be faced with, as it directly challenges his perceptions on every level imaginable. The gems are his world, and now a part of that world wants to die. There you go, Foss. You said you wanted to make Sensei suffer. You feel better now? We can't criticize Foss too much, though. He's basically a 623-year-old child thrust into situations he doesn't fully understand. One of the big reasons he gets set back so much is that he just doesn't have all the details. And neither do we. You see, we've kind of ended up smack dab in the middle of an arc, so we'll just have to wait and see how things develop from here. Suffer well, rock lads, and I'll see you next time.